The joke was out of my mouth before I had the sense to soften it, before I could dress it up as anything harmless. "If this place makes you that miserable," I said, cinching the last strap on the hitch of my trailer, standing in the gravel lot behind our duplexes, "you should just come with me." I was ready for a laugh, or a tired smile, or the look neighbors give you right before they find a reason to be somewhere else. Susan Marsh looked at the trailer, then looked at me, a canvas bag hanging off one shoulder, drizzle catching in her hair. "Okay," she said, like she had been standing there for months, waiting for somebody to finally ask. That was the point where a smarter man would have stopped, would have asked 3 or 4 plain questions. "Where do you think you're going? Why is your bag already packed? Are you in some kind of trouble? Do you understand that I was joking?" Instead, I stood there like a man who had spent 55 years learning to keep his voice level, only to have one woman erase the whole lesson with a single word. "My name is Dale Ashby. I rebuild small engines for a living, outboards and mowers, the tired little motors people haul into my shop after they have already decided the thing is dead. I spend my days coaxing life back into machines other folks gave up on. I understood a seized engine far better than I understood a hurting person, and most days I told myself that was fine. I lived in a plain little duplex community outside Spokane, Washington, the kind of place with strong opinions about trash bins, never quite enough room to park. My wife, Ellen, had been gone 7 years. Cancer did what cancer does. It moved in quiet, took up all the room in the house, and left the quiet behind when it was done. After she passed, I bought a used 22-foot trailer off a retired couple down in Pullman. It was the color of old cream, dented above the rear bumper, with yellow curtains Ellen would have torn down on sight. I fixed the water lines, laid new flooring, and stocked it with canned chili, decent coffee, and paper maps nobody bothers with anymore. Every year, right about the middle of July, I took it out for 2 weeks. No route, no big plan, no dramatic search for meaning, just highways and campgrounds, bad diner pie, and enough miles to remember I was still a person, not only a man living in the after. That morning I meant to drive east into the Idaho Panhandle, first night booked at a little lake park near Coeur d'Alene. I had been looking forward to rain on the roof, to nobody in the world needing a single thing from me. Then Susan came around the corner of Building C. She had moved in 10 months back, one door down from mine, 46 years old, brown hair she usually kept pinned up, gray eyes that took in more than they ever let on. She taught art at the high school, though I only knew that because Mrs. Barnes from the upstairs unit treated privacy like a lock she was born to pick. Susan and I were friendly the way neighbors get. We talked by the mailboxes. I jumped her battery one cold morning. She left a plate of ginger cookies on my step after I tightened the loose stair rail, then told me not to read into it because she had baked far too many. I liked her quietly. At my age, you learn the line between noticing a person and inventing a future for them. Noticing is the way somebody laughs with their whole face. Inventing is deciding that laugh has your name on it. I tried hard to stay on the first side of that line. That morning, she did not look like the woman who teased me for treating rusted carburetors, treating them like museum pieces. She looked pale, worn thin. Her raincoat was buttoned one hole off, one cuff of her sweater hung lower than the other, and her canvas bag had been packed in a hurry, the zipper straining around a fold of cloth trying to escape. "Susan," I said, "are you all right?" She glanced back toward the building. That was when I saw him. A man stood near the glass doors under the overhang, a phone loose in one hand. Tall, silver at the temples, a jacket that cost more than my truck payment. The kind of man who corrects a waiter so gently it lands twice as hard. He was not shouting. He was not chasing her. Somehow, that tightened my shoulders more than either would have. Susan turned back to me. "Are you leaving right now?" she asked. "Yeah," I said slowly, "in about 10 minutes. "Where?" she said. "East," I told her, "the lake country, maybe deeper into Idaho if the weather holds." She looked at the trailer again, at the little window over the sink, at the spare tire bolted to the back, at the road grime crusted along the fenders. Then she let out a short laugh with nothing warm in it. "Sounds nice," she said. That was when I made the joke. "If this place makes you that miserable, you should just come with me," I said. And she said, "Okay." Rain ticked against the trailer roof. Behind us, The man under the overhang took one slow step out from the shelter. I finally found my voice. "Susan," I said, "I was kidding." "I know," she said, "but you cannot just—" And I let the sentence die because of course she could. She was a grown woman with a packed bag, eyes that had run clean out of places to land. "I mean," I said, "you can. I just think you might want to tell me why." Her mouth trembled once before she got hold of it. That small thing hit me harder than crying would have. "Because if I stand here another 10 minutes, she said, "I'm going to let him explain how I am overreacting." The man called from the overhang. "Susan, do not turn this into a scene." There it was. Not loud, not wild, just sharpened to a fine edge that slid right through the wet air between us. Susan shut her eyes. I looked at him, then at her. "Ex-husband," I said. "Almost," she said. That one word carried a whole courthouse inside it. The sensible part of me pointed out that none of this was my business, that I was a widower with a trailer and a careful little life, that a lonely man ought to be very slow, that he should wait when a woman he likes turns up in the rain, when she asks to be carried off without quite asking. But I also knew the sound of a person being backed into a corner with a soft voice, and I knew I did not like it. I reached over and opened the passenger door of my truck. Susan stared at it. "Put your bag on the back seat," I said. Her eyes came up to mine. "Dale," she said, "this is not a kidnapping." "You can change your mind at the first stop sign," I said. For the first time all morning, something close to a real smile touched her mouth. "Generous," she said. "I am known for my reasonable exit policies," I said. She moved fast then, before either of us could think it to death. She swung the bag onto the back seat, climbed up into the cab, and pulled the door shut behind her. The man from the overhang started across the lot. I came around the driver's side with rain soaking through the back of my shirt. He reached me just as I got my hand on the door. "Excuse me," he said, with the ease of a man used to being obeyed. "This is a private matter." I looked past him at Susan in my truck, her hands knotted together in her lap, then back at him. "Funny," I said, "she looks pretty public standing out here in the rain." His face pulled tight. "You have no idea what is going on here," he said. "No," I said, "but I know she said yes to a road trip, yes to a man who owns 3 of the exact same work shirts, so I figure her morning has been rough." For half a second the polish cracked, and something ugly showed under it. Then Susan rolled her window down. "Preston," she said, and her voice came steadier than her hands. "If you follow us, I will call my lawyer, and then I will call your daughter." The man went still. That was new. I climbed into the cab and turned the key. The old engine rolled over and caught. My trailer lights blinked red through the drizzle. Susan did not look back as I pulled out of the lot, and neither did I, not until we hit the first red light 3 blocks down. The wipers dragged sheets of water off the glass. My hand sat easy on the wheel. Susan breathed beside me, like every inhale had to be argued for. "You can still get out," I said gently. "No hard feelings. I will turn us around, drop you anywhere you want." She kept her eyes on the road. Then she reached into her coat, drew out her phone, and turned the lit screen toward me. 14 missed calls and 1 message from Preston. "If you leave with him," it read, "I will tell everyone what you did." Susan's voice went quiet. "I need to tell you something," she said, "before you decide whether you still want me in your truck." I kept my eyes on the light, even after it turned green. A horn tapped behind us, not angry yet, just a nudge reminding us the world still expected ordinary motion. "Dale," Susan said, "I am thinking." "That mostly works better with the truck moving," I said. The horn came again. I eased us through the intersection slow enough that the man behind threw both hands up, swung around me, and sped off. Susan held her phone between us like it might bite. "If you leave with him, I will tell everyone what you did." Some sentences open a door. Some open a grave. I pulled into the lot of a shuttered tire shop 2 blocks on and put the truck in park. The trailer settled behind us with a soft groan. Rain smeared the faded yellow lines on the pavement. "Okay," I said, "tell me." Susan let out a thin laugh. "You do not want to keep driving first?" she said. "Put a few miles between us and my bad decisions?" I am The
joke
joke was
was
out of my
through the
mouth
rain
before I had the
said,
sense to soften
hauling
it,
a woman
before
who
I
just
could
walked
dress it
out
up
on her
as
almost
anything
ex-husband.
harmless.
My bad
If this
decision
place
quota
makes you
is
that
already full.
miserable, That
I
earned a
said,
real laugh,
cinching the last
small
strap
and
on the hitch of my
startled.
trailer,
And then it
standing in the gravel lot
Preston never
behind
hit
our
me,
duplexes,
she said.
You should just
I should
come
say
with
that
me.
part first.
I was ready for
I
a
waited.
laugh.
People
or a
always
tired
want
smile.
the simple version.
Or the look
she
neighbors
said,
give you right before
bruises
they
a
find
police
a reason to be
photo
somewhere else.
something they can hold.
Susan
without it
Marsh
getting
looked at the
complicated.
trailer, then
She
looked
ran
at
her
me,
thumb
a
along
canvas
the edge
bag
of the phone
hanging
case.
off one
Preston
shoulder.
is smarter than
drizzle
that.
catching in her hair.
The rain came down harder.
She said,
We were married
like she had
19
been standing
years,
there for
she said.
months.
He is an
waiting for
orthopedic
somebody to
surgeon.
finally ask.
Well respected.
That was the point where a
warm
smarter
as
man would have
sunshine
stopped,
in public,
would have asked
generous
three
whenever there was
before
somebody
playing
around
questions.
questions.
He
Where do you think
remembered
you're going?
every birthday.
Why is your bag already
Gave
packed?
to all the right
Are you in
causes,
some kind of trouble?
cried at his mother's
Do you
funeral.
understand that I was joking?
And at home,
Instead,
he
I
corrected
stood
the
there like
way
a man
I
who had
loaded
spent
the dishwasher
55
until I
years
quit loading
learning
it,
to keep
then
his
told
voice
people
level,
I never held.
only to have
He called
one
my
woman
art
erase
interesting
the
in the
whole
voice he
lesson with a
used on a
single
child's
word.
drawing.
My name is
He
Dale
watched
Ashby.
every account.
I rebuild
because he
small
said I was
engines
careless
for a
with
living.
money.
Outboards
He made
and
better
mowers,
friends with my
the
friends
tired
than I
little
ever
motors
had.
people haul
I knew
into my
that kind of
shop.
man. After
Not
they have
close
already
up.
decided the thing.
Thank God. I
But
spent
I
my
had
days
rebuilt
coaxing
enough
life
boat
back into
motors while
machines
husband
other folks
hovered at
gave
my
up on.
shoulder.
I understood
Answering
a
questions I
seized
put to
engine
his
far
wife.
better than I
When I
understood.
finally
a hurting
filed,
person, Susan
and
said,
most days I told
he
myself
acted
I was
wounded.
fine.
I
Like I
lived
had
in a
shot him
plain
in the
little
middle of
duplex
grace.
community outside
What do you mean?
Spokane.
I asked
Washington,
what you did.
the kind
Her
of place
jaw
with
set
strong
hard.
opinions about
For a
trash
second,
bins.
I thought
Never
she
quite
might
enough
tell
for
me
him
to just
park.
start driving.
My wife,
that it was none of
Ellen,
my business,
had been gone 7
which would have been
years.
fair enough.
Cancer did what
Instead,
cancer
she
does.
unlocked the phone.
It moved
and
in quiet,
opened it,
took up all the
it was
room
a print,
in the house,
a woodblock
and
print
left the
pulled
quiet
in
behind
black
when it
ink
was done.
on cream paper.
After she passed,
Not a pretty one.
I bought a used
A woman
22-foot
stood at a
trailer
kitchen
off a
counter.
retired couple
Her face
down in
left
Pullman.
unfinished.
It was the color of
blank
gold
where the
cream,
features should be.
dented above
The
the
cabinets
rear
behind her
bumper,
were carved
with yellow
too
curtains
sharp,
on,
would have
too
torn down on
clean,
sight.
too perfect.
I fixed the water
A man's
lines,
shadow
laid
ran
new
the length of
flooring,
the floor,
and stocked it with
long
canned
enough
chili,
to reach her
decent
heels.
coffee.
In
and
one
paper
corner, a
maps
small
nobody
bird
bothers with
lay
anymore.
against a window
Every
pane,
year,
its neck
right
bent
about the middle
wrong.
of July.
I did not know much
took it
about
out
art
for 2
past,
weeks.
how to reglue a
No
picture
route,
frame,
no
but that
big
print
plan,
put a
no
fist in my
dramatic
chest.
search for meaning.
I
just
cut 9
highways
of
and
them.
campgrounds.
Susan said
a
a
whole
whole
series
and enough
I call
miles
house
to remember
rules.
I was still a
I
person.
pulled the details from
not
my
only
own
a
life,
man living
but
in
nothing
the
you could
after.
point at.
That morning I meant
names,
to drive
no
east
real
into
faces,
the Idaho
just the
Panhandle.
feeling of it. First
They're
night
good,
booked
I
at a
think.
little lake park
They are
near
honest,
Coeur d'Alene.
I said.
I had been
She
looking
corrected me
forward
on
to
that,
rain
too.
on the roof.
Her eyes
to
flicked
nobody
over,
in the world
grateful and
needing
wary
a
at
single
once.
thing from me.
A gallery
Then
in
Susan
Seattle
came
wanted
around
to
the
hang
corner
them,
of Building
she
C.
said.
She
A
had
small
moved in
place,
10 months back,
but a respected
one door
one.
down from mine.
The show was supposed to
46
open
years
next
old.
month.
Brown
She
hair,
took the phone
she
back.
usually kept pinned
Preston
up.
found out.
Gray eyes
Ow.
that took
I
him more
asked.
than they ever
My
let on.
email,
She
said.
taught art at the high
He
school.
swears he does
Though
not
I
have my
only knew that
passwords
because
anymore,
Mrs.
which is
Barnes from the
strange
upstairs
because my
unit treated
passwords keep
privacy like a
recognizing
lock.
him.
She was
I
born
did
to
not
pick.
smile.
Susan
He told me
and
if
I
I
were
hung
friendly
those
the way
prints,
neighbors get.
everyone
We
would
talked by the
know they were
mailbox
about
him.
him.
Susan
I jumped her
said.
battery
He said I was
cold
defaming
morning.
him.
She left
He
the
said
plate
he would
of
sue the
ginger
gallery,
cookies on my
sue
step.
me.
After
Make
I
sure the school
tightened the
district
loose
started
stair
asking
rail,
questions
then told
about
me
my
not to
judgment.
read into
Her
it because
voice
she had
thinned
baked
out.
far
Then he
too
said he
many.
would tell people
I liked her
stole from his
quietly.
mother.
At my
I turned
age,
toward her.
You
Did
learn
you?
the
I
line
asked.
between noticing
Susan
a person
closed her
and
eyes.
inventing a future
There
for
was
them.
the piece
Noticing
that
is
shamed
the
her
way
enough
somebody
to
laughs
laugh
with their whole
when his mother
face.
was dying.
Inventing
She gave me a
is
ring.
deciding that
She
laugh
said,
has your name
an
on it.
emerald.
I tried hard to
family
stay on the
piece.
first side of that line.
Preston had gone
that
down for
morning. She
coffee.
did not look like
She
the
pressed
woman
it into
who
my
teased
hand
me for
and
treating
told
me
me
rusted
it was for the
carburetors,
days I needed
treating
a
them like
reminder,
museum
the
pieces.
days I needed
She
to
looked
remember
pale,
I belonged
worn
to
thin.
myself.
Her
first.
raincoat was
Something
buttoned
old
one
and
hole
tender
off,
turned
one
over my
cuff of her
chest.
sweater hung
Did Preston
lower
know?
than the other.
I asked.
And her canvas
He knew
bag
she
had been
loved
packed
that
in a
ring,
hurry.
Susan
The
said.
zipper
And he
straining
knew
around
it
a
went
fold of
missing after
cloth
she
trying
passed.
to escape.
I never told
Susan,
him because
I
by then
said,
I had learned
"Are you
that
all right?"
anything handed
She
to
glanced
me
back toward the
became
building.
one more
That was when I
thing
saw
he
him.
managed.
A man
Do you
stood
still
near the
have it?
glass doors
I asked.
under the overhang.
Yes, she said.
A phone
Then it is not
loose in one
stealing,
hand.
I said.
Tall,
in a
silver at the
courtroom.
temple. temples,
Maybe not,
and
she
jacket
said.
that cost
In a
more than
whisper
my truck
campaign
payment.
around town,
The kind of man who
it is whatever
corrects a
he
waiter
needs it to be.
so gently it
She looked out
lands
the
twice as
windshield.
hard.
Preston
He was not
does not
shouting.
have to win.
He
in
was
front
not
of
chasing
Judge.
her.
He doesn't
Somehow,
even look
that tightened
unstable,
my shoulders
greedy,
more
bitter.
than either
He
would
is
have.
very good at that.
Susan turned back
My
to
phone
me.
buzzed in a
Are you
cup
leaving
holder.
right now? I
She
glanced
asked.
down.
Yeah,
Mrs. Barnes
I said slowly.
naturally. In about
I let it
10
go.
minutes. Susan noticed
Where?
and
She
gave a
said.
dry little smile.
East.
I
Word
told her
travels
the lake
fast,
country,
she said.
Maybe
You have no
deeper in
idea,
Idaho if the weather
I said.
holds. That woman
She
could
looked
have
at the
warned
trailer
Pompeii
again,
at the
with
little
time to
window
spare.
over the
My
sink
phone buzzed
at
again.
the spare
Then
tire
hers did.
bolted to
Preston.
the back at the road.
She stared at his
grime
name
crusted
until
along
the call
fenders.
died. Then she
And
let out a
voicemail
short
marker
laugh
with
slid
nothing
up
warm
right
in it.
behind it.
Sounds
Do
nice,
not listen,
she
I
said.
said. That was when
I
I
have
made
to
the
joke.
joke. Said.
If
No,
this place makes
I
you
said,
that miserable,
you really do not.
You should just come
She
with
pressed
me.
play anyway.
I said.
Preston's
She
voice
said,
filled the
okay,
cab.
smooth
Rain
ticked
as a
against
river
the trailer
stone.
roof.
Susan,
Behind us,
you are not
the
being
man
rational.
under the overhang.
I'm worried about
took
you.
one slow
Getting into a
step
stranger's
out from
truck
shelter
is not
I finally
normal
found my
behavior.
voice. I already spoke
Susan,
to Bonnie,
I said,
and she
I was
agrees
kidding.
this is
I
concerning.
know.
She
Come
said,
back, but
before
you
it turns
cannot
into
just.
something we
And I let the
cannot
sentence
undo.
die because of course
Susan
she
went
could.
rigid. She was
Bonnie,
a grown
I said,
woman with a packed
my sister,
bag,
she said,
eyes that had
and a message
run
rolled
clean
on.
out of
And
places.
if Dale
to land.
Ashby thinks,
inserting
I said,
himself
you
into my
can?
marriage is wise.
I just think you might want to tell me
You should
why.
understand that I
Her
know
mouth
a few
trembled
things about
once
him,
before
too.
she got hold
My
of it.
blood cooled.
That small thing hit me
Susan,
harder than
stop
crying
the
would
message.
have.
Because
Neither
if I
of us
stand
moved.
here another 10
Then
minutes,
I laughed
she
once
said,
with nothing behind
I'm
it.
going to let him explain how
I said
am
he works
overreacting.
fast.
The
She
man
turned to me.
called from the overhang.
What could he know about you?
Susan,
she asked.
do not
That I
turn
do
this
not
into
care
a
to be
scene.
threatened
There
before
was
lunch. I
not
said.
loud,
Dale, she
not
said.
wild.
I rubbed
to
a hand
sharpen
down
to
my
a fine
face.
edge that
There were
slid
things
right
everyone
through the wet
in
air
the
between
complex
us.
knew.
Susan
Widower,
shut her
engine
eyes.
guy. I
keeps
looked
to
at
himself,
him, then at her.
owns a trailer,
Ex-husband,
drinks
I
his coffee
said.
black,
Almost,
drags
she
the
said.
neighbor's trash
That one
bins
word
in when the
carried
wind
a
kicks
whole
up.
courthouse
And then there were
inside
things
it.
that belonged
The
to
sensible
nobody.
part of me pointed
My
out
wife
that
died
none
7
of
years
this was
ago,
my business.
I said.
That I was
I know,
a
she
widower
said.
with a trailer.
What people do
and
not
a
know,
careful little
I
life.
said,
That
is
a
that the
lonely
last
man
6
ought
months
to be
were
very
ugly.
slow.
Pain medication,
That he should wait
when
fear
a woman he
and
liked
stack her
turns up in
bills
the
that
rain.
never stop.
When she asked
Her
to be
sister
carried
thought
off without
I should
quite
keep
asking.
fighting every
But I also
second,
knew the sound
every
of a person
treatment,
being backed
every
into a
miracle
corner
some
with a
website
soft
was
voice,
selling.
and I knew
I
I
watched
did
the
not
rain
like it.
slide
I
down
reached
the
over
glass.
and
Ellen
opened the
asked me to
passenger door
stop.
of my truck.
Susan's face stared at
softened.
it. She
Put
was
your bag
done.
on the back seat,
I
I said.
She was in
Her
pain.
eyes came up to
She
mine.
wanted hospice.
Dale,
not one
she
more
said,
hospital bed.
this is not a
I
kidnapping.
signed the papers.
You can
because
change your
her
mind at the
hand
first stop
could not
sign,
hold the
I
pen
said.
anymore.
For the
I
first
could
time
still
all
feel
morning,
that pen.
something
Cheap
close
plastic,
to a real
blue
smile
ink
touched her
heavy
mouth.
as a wrench in my
Generous,
fingers.
she said.
Her sister
I am
told
known for
people
my
I gave up
reasonable
on her.
exit
I
policies.
said that I wanted my life
She
back.
moved fast
Did you?
then.
Susan
Before
asked.
either of us
The
could
question
think it to
came
death.
quiet.
She swung
Not
the
as
bag
an
onto the back
accusation.
seat.
I answered
climbed
the
up
only
into the
honest
cab,
way I had.
and pulled the door
Yes, I
shut
said.
behind her.
I wanted her back.
The man from the
I
overhang
wanted the life
started
we had
across the
before
lot.
all of it. I came
I
around the
wanted one
driver's
morning
side with
where I did
rain
not wake
soaking
already
through the back
grieving.
of my shirt.
And I wanted it
He
to be
reached me
over
just
because
as I got my
watching
hand
someone
on
you
the
love
door.
suffer
Excuse
is its
me,
own
he
kind of
said,
dying.
with the ease of
My
man
throat
used
burned.
to being obeyed.
So if Preston
This is a
went
private
digging,
matter.
I said,
I looked past
maybe
him
he
and
turned up
Susan
some
in my
version of
truck.
that.
Her
Maybe he
hands
thinks
knotted
shame
together in
is
her
a rare
lap.
thing.
Then back at
Susan's
it.
hand
Funny.
crossed the
I
space
said,
between us.
she looks
and
pretty
rested
public
light
standing
on my
out here in the
forearm.
rain. I am sorry,
His face
she said.
pulled tight.
I nodded
You have no
once,
idea
because
what is
anything
going on
more
here,
might
he
have come
said.
apart on me.
No.
Another
I
call,
said,
lit
but
her
I know
phone.
she said yes
Preston
to a
again.
road trip.
This time she
Yes to a
declined
man
it
who owns
herself.
3 of the
Where are you
exact
planning to
same
go?
work shirts.
I
So,
asked.
I figure her
She glanced
morning has
back
been
at the
rough.
trailer.
For half
Honestly,
a second, the
she
polish
said,
cracked.
I got
and
about as
something
far as
ugly
the parking
showed
lot.
under it.
Then
Well,
Susan
I
rolled her
said,
window down.
Lucky for you,
Preston,
my accommodations
she
are
said,
only
and
mildly
her voice came
suspicious.
steadier than her hands.
That almost smile
If you
came
follow
back.
us, I put the
I will
truck in
call my
drive.
lawyer.
First rule
and
of the
then
road.
I will call your
I
daughter.
said,
The
nobody
man
makes
makes
a
big
bill.
decision.
That was
hungry.
new.
There's a
I climbed into
diner
the cab
40
and
miles
turned the
east
key.
with terrible
The old
coffee,
engine rolled
pancake
over
worth
and
crossing
caught.
a state
My trailer
fair.
lights blinked
You're still
red
taking me?
through
She
the
asked.
drizzle. I
Susan
looked at
did
her.
not look back
You wanna
as I
come?
pulled out of the lot.
I said,
and neither
her
did
answer
I.
came faster
Not
this
until we
time.
hit the first
Yes,
red
she
light
said.
3 blocks
Then buckle
down.
up. The
I
wipers
said,
dragged
she
sheets
clicked the
of
belt
water
into
off the
place.
glass. As we pulled
My
back
hand
on
sat
the highway,
easy
my
on the
phone
wheel.
buzzed again.
Susan
I braced
breathed
for
beside
Mrs.
me,
Barnes,
like
but the
every
screen showed a
inhale
number I
had to
did
be
not know.
argued for.
A text. You can still get out.
Mr. Ashby,
I said gently.
This is Preston
No
Kessler.
hard feelings.
You are making a
I will turn us
serious
around.
mistake. Drop
Susan
you
is
anywhere
not
you
the
want.
person you think
She kept her
is.
eyes on the road.
A second message
Then she
landed
reached into
before
her
I could
coat,
react.
drew out
Ask
her
her
phone,
what happened to
and
the
turned
last
the lit
man
screen
who tried to
toward
help
me.
her.
14
I did not
missed
show
calls
Susan that text
and one
right
message
away.
from Preston.
That was my first
If you leave with
mistake.
him,
My
it
second
read,
was telling
I will
myself
tell everyone what you
I
did.
kept it quiet.
Susan's
to protect
voice
her.
went quiet.
People always
I need to tell
dress
you
their
something
fear in
she
nicer
said,
clothes
before
when they
you
get the
decide
chance.
whether you still
We
want me
drove
in your truck.
eased through a gray
I kept my
curtain
eyes on
of
the
rain,
light,
the
even
city
after it
thinning
turned
out
green. Behind
A
us.
horn tapped behind
Strip malls
us,
gave way
not
to
angry
stanza
yet.
pine. Just a
The
nudge
trailer
reminding
trailed
us the
along with
world's
its familiar
expected,
drag,
ordinary
tugging at the
motion.
truck on
Dale,
every
Susan
curve,
said,
reminding
I am
me
thinking
that every choice
that mostly works
carries
better
its
with the
own
truck
weight.
moving.
I
Susan
said.
leaned her head
The horn
against the
came
window.
again.
Eyes
I eased
open,
us through the
nowhere
intersection
near
slow
sleep.
enough that the man
Her phone
behind
lay
threw
face
both
down in her
hands
lap,
up,
swung
Mine
around
sat in
me,
the cup holder,
and sped off.
screen gone dark.
Susan held her phone
carrying
between us
Preston's
like a
words
might
like a
bite.
live coal.
If you leave with him,
ask her
what
what
happened
happened
to
to
the
everyone
last
what you
man
did.
who tried to
Some
help her.
sentences
I made it
open a
12
door.
miles.
Some open
On
a
a
grave.
long, flat
I
stretch
pulled into the
past
lot
the
of a
shuttered
shuttered
fruit
tire
stand, I
shop
said,
2 blocks on.
Preston texted
and
me.
put the truck in park.
Susan did not
The
move,
trailer settled
but
behind
something
us
in her
with a
face
soft
closed
groan.
like a shopping
Rain
night.
smeared the
What did he
faded
say?
yellow
She
lines
asked.
on the pavement.
I picked up the phone and
I
handed
said,
it over.
"Tell me."
She read
Susan
both
let out a
lines
thin
once.
laugh.
Then
"You
again,
do not want to keep driving
then let out
first?"
a low, bitter
she
laugh.
said. "Put a
Of
few
course,
miles
she
between
said.
us and my
That is
bad
not my favorite
decisions."
answer. I
The
said.
joke was out
She
of my
passed
mouth
the phone back
before I had the
His
sense
name
to
was
soften
David
it.
Cole.
Before I
She
could
said,
dress it up,
the last
as
man who
anything
tried to help me.
harmless. My
If
lawyer.
this place makes
That
you
surprised me
that
enough to
miserable,
look over.
I said,
Eyes on the road,
cinching the
she
last
said.
strap on the hitch
I
of my
corrected a
trailer,
touch too
standing
hard,
in the gravel
and the
lot
trailer
behind our
wheels caught the
duplexes.
shoulder rumble
You should
strip
just
for
come
half
with
a
me.
second.
I was ready
Susan
for a
grabbed the
laugh
door handle.
or a tired
Sorry,
smile.
I said.
Or the look
No,
neighbors give
she
you
said.
right before
I
they
am
find
sorry.
a reason to be somewhere else.
I am not used to telling this
Susan
story at
Marsh
highway
looked at the
speed.
trailer.
Take
then
your
looked
time,
at me.
I said.
A canvas bag
She looked out at the
hanging
wet trees.
off one shoulder.
David was my first
drizzle
divorce
catching in her
attorney.
hair. She said,
Okay,
younger than
she
Preston,
said,
like she had been
older than
standing
me,
there
sharp,
for months,
kind,
waiting
the sort
for
of man
somebody
who
to
actually
finally
remembered
ask.
what you said.
That was the
last meeting.
point where a smarter
Preston
man would have
hated him
stopped,
on sight
would have asked
because he was
3
helping you.
or 4 plain
I said,
questions.
Because he
Where
did
do you
not
think you're
charm
going?
easy.
Why is
she
your bag
said.
already packed?
The road
Are
lifted
you in
ahead
some
of
kind of
us.
trouble? Great.
Do you
and
understand
slick.
that I was joking?
David pushed
Instead,
for
I
full
stood there like a
financial
man who had spent
disclosure. She said,
55
real
years
disclosure,
learning to keep
Preston
his
had
voice
money
level,
parked in accounts
only to
I had
have
never
one
seen,
woman erase
investments,
the whole lesson
a cabin
of
tucked
silver.
under some LLC.
My name is Dale Ashby.
Nothing shocking
I
for a
rebuild
man with
small
money,
engines for
I
a
suppose,
living,
outboards
but enough
and
to
mowers,
prove he had been
the
lying
tired
for
little
years.
motors people
What
haul
happened?
into my shop.
I asked.
After they
David
have already
died, she
decided
said.
the thing is
The
dead.
words came into the
I
cab.
spend my
and
days
just
coaxing
there.
life back
I
into
waited for
machines
more,
other folks
but
gave
she
up on.
pressed her fingers
I
to her
understood a
mouth.
seized
Car
engine
accident.
far better than
I
I
asked
understood
gently.
a hurting
She
person.
nodded.
And
2
most
weeks
days
after
I
he
told myself
filed the
I was
disclosure
fine.
motion,
I lived in a
she
plain
said.
little
He was
duplex
driving home from
community
his office
outside
late.
Spokane.
Went off a back
Washington,
road outside
the kind of place
Cheney,
with strong
hit a
opinions
tree.
about trash
Was Preston
bins.
involved?
Never quite
I
enough room
asked.
to park.
I do not
My
know,
wife,
Dale,
she
Ellen,
said, had been
I
gone
do not
7
know.
years. And then she
Cancer
shut her
did
eyes.
what cancer does.
Sorry. It moved
No
in
need,
quiet,
I said.
took up all the
She
room in the
breathed
house,
and slow.
and
The
left
police
the quiet
said
behind
David
when it
had
was
been
done.
drinking.
After
She
she
said,
passed,
his
I
blood
bought a used
alcohol
22-foot
was
trailer
over the line.
off a retired
Preston
couple
called
down
it a
in Turkey.
tragedy.
It was the
Suggested
color of
maybe
old
I should
cream,
think harder about
tinted
who I let
above the
close
rear
to me.
bumper.
My
With
hands
yellow
tightened on
curtains
the
Ellen
wheel.
would have torn down
Was
on
David a
sight.
drinker?
I fixed the
asked.
water lines.
Not like that,
Laid
she
new
said.
flooring.
A glass
and
of wine
stocked it
now
with canned
and then.
chili,
He
decent
had
coffee,
2 little boys,
and paper maps
and a wife
nobody
he was
bothers
crazy
with
about.
anymore.
He was
Every
not
year,
reckless.
right about the middle
She
of
turned
July,
toward me.
I took it
But
out
grief
for 2
makes
weeks.
people want clean
No
answers.
route,
She
no
said.
big plan,
His
no
firm
dramatic
pushed me to
search for
settle.
meaning, just
My
highways
sister
and
begged me to
campgrounds,
stop
bad diner
escalating.
pie.
Preston
and
stood
enough
in our
miles
kitchen
to remember I
and
was
told
still
me
a
some
person,
fights,
not only
just
a man living
track
in the
casualties.
That
A
morning
cold
I meant
ran
to
through
drive
me the
east
heater
into the
could not
Idaho
reach.
Panhandle.
Did you report
First
that?
night booked at a
I
little
asked.
lake park
To
near
who,
Coeur
she
d'Alene.
said.
The
I had been
police had
looking
a dead
forward
man,
to rain on
a
the
toxicology
roof, to
report,
nobody in the
and
world
a client
needing
who
a
sounded
single
paranoid.
thing from me. She shook
Then
her head.
Susan came
I
around
changed
the corner
lawyers
of Building
instead.
C.
A woman this
She had
time.
moved in 10
Sandra
months
Cho,
back,
one door down
as a
from
lug
mine.
nut.
She told me
46
never
years
speak to
old,
Preston
brown hair
without
she
a
usually
record
kept
running.
pinned up,
Smart, I
gray
said.
eyes that
Expensive,
took in more than they
she
ever
said.
let on.
A mile
She taught
marker
art at the high
flashed
school.
past.
Though I only
So
knew
when
that
Preston
because
tells you
Mrs.
to ask what
Barnes from the
happened,
upstairs
she
unit
said,
treated
he
privacy
wants you
like
picturing a
lock.
woman
She
who
was born to
ruins
pick.
the man who helped
Susan and I were
Dramatic,
friendly the way neighbors
dangerous.
get. Maybe
We
working
talked
some
by the
angles.
mailboxes.
Whatever story
I jumped
makes
her
you
battery
doubt
out
the
one
woman
cold
beside
morning.
you.
And
She
she
left
left
a
a plate
man
of ginger
sending
cookies on my
threats.
step. It was a good
After
trick.
I tightened the
I hated how
loose stair
close it
rail,
had come to
then
working.
told me not
I
to
should have
read
shown
into
you
it
that
because
text
she
the
had
second
baked
it came
far
in.
too
I
many.
said. I liked her
she said.
quietly. No
At
softness.
my age,
No letting me
you
off.
learn the line
I am
between
sorry,
noticing
I
a
said.
person
She
and
nodded,
inventing a future
still
for them.
watching the road.
Noticing
Thank
is the
you,
way somebody
she
laughs
said.
with their whole face.
We reached the diner
Inventing
a little after 10.
is deciding
It sat
that
beside
laugh
a
has your
gas
name on
station
it.
at the edge
I tried
of
hard to stay on the
Timbertown,
first side of that
windows
line.
fogged.
That morning
The
she
sign
did not
shaped
look
like a
like the
rooster
woman
out
who
front.
teased me
I
for
parked along
treating
the far
rusted
edge of the lot,
carburetors, eating
treating
up
them like
museum
museum
pieces because a
pieces.
trailer demands
She looked pale,
respect
worn
or takes
thin.
revenge.
Her raincoat
Have you
was
ever had
buttoned
one
one
small
hole off,
choice,
open a
one
door
cuff
you
of her
never
sweater
expected?
hung
I would
lower
like to
than
hear
the
about
other,
it in the comments.
and her canvas bag
Inside, the place smelled like bacon grease, wet
straining
coats,
around a
burnt
fold of
coffee.
cloth.
A waitress with a silver braid
Susan,
called everyone
I said,
Han. Are
and
you
meant
all
nothing
right?
by it.
She glanced
took a
back
booth
toward the
near the
building.
back where
That was when I
Susan could
saw
see
him.
the door. A man
I
stood
noticed
near the
that.
glass doors
So did
under
she.
the overhang.
Habit, she
a said.
phone loose
A good
in
one,
hand.
I said.
Tall,
We ordered
silver
pancakes,
at the temples,
eggs,
a jacket
and coffee
that
strong
cost
enough
more than
to
my
trip
truck payment.
For
The kind
10
of man
minutes, we
who
did a
corrects
fair
a waiter
impression of
so
two
gently it
ordinary
lands
people.
twice as hard.
She asked about the
He was
trailer.
not shouting.
I told her
He
I
was
had
not
named
chasing
it
her.
Mabel.
Because
Somehow,
every
that
stubborn
tight
old
in my
thing
shoulders
deserves an
more
old
than
lady
either
name.
would have. Mabel.
Susan turned back
She
to me.
said,
"Are you leaving right
amused
now?"
despite
she
herself.
asked. She
Yeah,
leaks when she
I said
feels
slowly.
insulted.
In about
I
10
said,
minutes.
"Then I will
Where?"
mind my manners,"
she said.
"East.
You
I
had
told
better.
her. The
I
lake
said,
country.
She is hauling
Maybe
my
deeper
emergency
into Idaho
chili.
if the weather holds."
That got a real smile.
She looked at the trailer
and changed her
again,
whole
at the
face.
little window.
I looked away
over
a
the
beat
sink,
too late.
at the spare
Susan
tire
caught that too,
bolted to the back
and said
the
nothing.
road grime
My phone
crusted
buzzed
along
on the table.
fenders.
An
Then she let out a
number.
short laugh.
A photo
with nothing
loaded.
warm in it.
My stomach dropped
Sounds
before
nice,
I understood
she
why.
said.
It was
That
the
was when I
diner
made the
lot.
joke.
My
If
truck,
this place
my
makes
trailer,
you that
rain
miserable,
silvering the
you should just come with me.
shot from
I
across
said.
the road.
And she said,
Susan went white.
"Okay." Then a message
Rain
ticked
You
against
were
the
only
trailer
making
roof.
this harder on her.
Behind us,
I was about
the
the
man
booth,
under the
so
overhang
fast my
took
knee
one
cracked
slow
the
step
table,
out from the shelter.
The coffee
I finally
jumped in
found my
mugs.
voice. Dale.
Susan whispered.
I said,
I was already
kidding.
moving.
I know.
Outside, she said.
Rain
But
slapped
you
my
cannot
face.
just.
I scanned the
and
gas
I let the
pumps,
sentence die
the
because
shoulder,
of course she could.
the row of parked
She was a
cars
grown
across
woman
the
with a
road.
packed bag,
A dark SUV
eyes that
idled
had
near the
run
far
clean
curb.
out of places.
Driver's
window.
tinted
black.
I said,
I took 3 steps.
I just
toward
think you might want to tell me
and
why.
it pulled away.
Her mouth
no
trembled
squeal,
once before
no
she got hold
speed,
of it.
Just
That
leaving
small
with the
thing
calm
hit
of a
me
man
harder than
making a
crying would
point.
have. I tried
Because
to
if
catch
I
the
stand
plane.
here another 10
Washington
minutes,
blue.
she said,
Ended in
I'm
something
going to
like
let him
6
explain
kj.
how I am.
By the time I got back
overreacting.
inside,
The man
Susan
called
had
for
paid
the
the check
overhang
and boxed our
Susan,
food.
do
We
not
have to go,
turn
she
this into a
said.
scene.
Agreed.
There it was.
I said,
Not loud.
No, Dale.
Not
She said,
wild.
we
Just
have to
sharp
decide
into
where
a
we're
fine
going,
edge that
not
slid
just
right
right
through
from
the
here.
wet air between
In the truck,
us.
she called
Susan
Sandra
shut her
show on
eyes.
speaker. I looked at him,
3 rings.
then at her.
Then a voice
Ex-husband,
sharp enough
I
to
said.
cut rope.
Almost,
Susan,
she said. Tell me
that
you were
one
not
word
with Preston.
carried a whole
I'm not,
courthouse
Susan
inside
said.
it.
I am with
The
a
sensible
neighbor,
part of me
Dale
pointed
Ashby.
out that none
Preston
of this
followed
was my
us,
business,
or he sent
that I was a
someone.
widower with
Where
a
are you?
trailer and a
Sandra
careful
asked.
little life.
Susan looked
that
at
a
me.
lonely man
I hesitated.
ought to be very
Sandra
slow,
caught it down the line.
that he should wait
Mr.
when
Ashby,
a woman he likes
if you
turns
are
up in the
listening,
rain.
she said,
When she asked
I
to
do
be
not
carried
care how
off
noble
without
you
quite
feel right
asking.
now. But I
Do
also
not
knew the
improvise
sound
with
of
a
a controlling
person being
man
backed into
who
a
has
corner
money.
with a
Where are
soft
you?
voice.
I gave her the
and I knew
towel
I did not
and
like
the
it.
diner. I reached
Get back
over
on the main road.
and opened the
Sandra
passenger
said.
door of my
Do
truck.
not book a campground.
Susan
in your
stared
name.
at it. Do not
Put your
touch
bag on the
Susan's
back
cards,
seat,
I said.
Susan,
Her eyes
is your
came up to
phone
mine.
location off?
Dale.
She
Susan
said,
froze.
This is not a kidnapping.
Sandra cursed.
You can change
under
your
her
mind at the
breath.
first stop sign.
Turn it off now,
I said. She said,
For the
better
first
yet,
time,
power it all the
morning,
way down.
something close
Susan
to
did.
a real smile
Mr. Ashby
touched her mouth.
Sandra went on.
Generous.
Do you
she
have somewhere
said.
private?
I am known
Not
for my
family,
reasonable exit
not the obvious
policies,
place.
I said. I thought about
She
the lake
moved
park in
fast
Coeur
then,
d'Alene
before
booked
either of
and
us
paid
could
under my
think it to
name.
death.
No, I
She
said.
swung the bag
Then I
onto the
remembered.
back seat.
Ellen's brother
climbed up
Tom
into the cab,
had owned a scrap
pulled
of
the door
land
shut
up
above
behind
a
her.
creek
The man from
outside
the overhang
Sandpoint.
started
a
across
half-cleared
the lot.
acre with an
I
old
came around the
gravel
driver's
pad
side
and a
with
power
rain
hookup for campers.
soaking through the back
After
of my
Tom
shirt.
passed his daughter,
He reached
kept
me
it and
just
never
as I got
used
my
it.
hand on the door.
I had parked Mabel
Excuse
up there
me,
twice. He said,
I might.
with the ease
I
of
said,
man used to
Ellen's
being
brother
obeyed.
left a piece
This
of
is a
land
private
up past
matter.
Sandpoint. I looked past him
said,
as Susan
a
in
gravel
my truck,
truck, a power
her hands
post,
knotted
nobody
together in her
around.
lap.
Go
Then
there,
back at
Sandra
him.
said.
Funny, and send me
I
the
said,
address from your
she
phone
looks pretty
only.
public standing
Susan,
out
listen
here in the rain.
close.
His
Preston
face pulled
filed
tight.
an emergency
You have no
welfare
idea what is
request
going on here,
30
he
minutes
said.
ago.
No,
He is claiming
I
you
said,
are unstable.
but I know she said yes to a road
possibly
trip.
with an older
Yes to a
male
man who
neighbor
owns
against
3
your
of
own
the
better
exact
judgment.
same work shirts.
Susan shut
So,
her eyes.
I figure her morning
Of course
has been
he
rough,
is,
she said.
For half a second,
There's
the
more,
polish
Sandra
Sandra
said,
and something
he
ugly
attached a
showed
statement
under it.
from your sister.
Then Susan rolled
The
her
cab
window
seemed
down.
to shrink around us.
Preston,
she
Susan's
said,
voice dropped,
and her voice
what did
came
Bonnie
steadier
say?
than her hands.
That you have been
If you
erratic,
follow
Sandra
us,
said. I will call my
paranoid,
lawyer,
and
fixated
then I
on
will call your
punishing
daughter.
Preston. The man
Susan
was still.
folded
That
forward
was new.
like something had
I climbed into
struck
the
her in
cab
the middle
and turned the key.
I kept my eyes
The
on
old
smeared
engine
gray
rolled
road
over and put the
coughed.
truck in gear.
My trailer lights
Susan
blinked
Sandra
red
said
through the drizzle.
Preston is claiming
Susan
you
did not
stole
look
the
back as I
emerald
pulled
ring,
out of the lot.
that you used
and
it to
neither
pay
did
David
I.
Cole for services
Not until we hit the
beyond
first
legal
red
advice.
light 3 blocks
Susan
down.
made a sound
The
I will not
wipers
forget.
dragged sheets
Not a
of
sob,
water off
a
the
break.
grass.
The
My
line
hand
went
sat
quiet
easy
moment.
on the wheel.
Then Sandra
Susan
added,
breathed beside
I need to
me,
ask you
like
something.
every
and I
inhale
need the truth.
had to be argued for.
Do you still have a ring?
You can still get out.
Susan lifted
I
her
said
head
gently.
slow. No hard
Her
feelings.
eyes went to the bag in
I will
the
turn
back
us
seat.
around,
Yes,
drop you anywhere
she
you
whispered,
want. But not
she kept
where
her eyes
Preston
on the
thinks.
road.
Then she
Sandra
reached
reached
in her
silent
coat,
exactly
drew
2
out her
seconds,
phone,
and
Where
turned
is
a
it?
lit
She
screen
asked.
toward me.
Susan
14
looked at
missed
me,
calls,
then at
and
the
one
ring,
message from
then
Preston.
back at the bag.
If you leave with him
in a carving box,
it read, she said,
I will tell
under
everyone
my
what you did.
tubes and a
Susan's
rag.
voice,
Sandra
went
let
quiet.
out a breath.
I need to tell you
Tell
something.
me it is with you,
she said.
before you
It is
decide
with me,
whether you still
Susan
want me
said.
in the truck.
Good, Sandra
I kept
said.
my eyes on the
Do not
light,
take it out in
even
public.
after it turned
Do
green.
not photograph
A
it.
horn tapped
Do not
behind
discuss
us,
it with anybody.
Not angry
but
yet.
me.
Just a
I'm
nudge
discussing
reminding
with
us
Dale,
the world
Susan
still
said.
expected
I gathered
ordinary
that,
emotion.
Sandra said.
Dale,
and
Susan
her tone
said,
went sharper.
I am thinking. thinking,
Mr. Ashby,
that mostly works better with the truck
congratulations.
moving. You are
I
now a
said.
witness.
The horn came
a
again.
getaway driver.
I eased us
and
through the
possibly a
intersection
liability.
slow enough that the man
Always nice
behind
to be
threw
useful.
both hands
I
up,
said.
swung around
I'm
me,
serious, she
and
said.
sped off.
So am I.
Susan held
I
her
said.
phone between
A
us like a
pause.
might bite.
Then,
If you leave
Sandra
with him,
said,
I will
Preston
tell
is trying to
everyone
build
what
a
you did.
story before
Some
Susan
sentences
can build a
open a
record.
door.
That means he
Some
wants
open a
panic.
grave.
I
He wants
pulled into the
mistakes.
lot of a shuttered
Do not
tire
hand
shop
him
2 blocks
either one.
on.
Susan
put the
wiped
truck in
under
park.
one.
The
eye
trailer
with
settled
the heel
behind
of her
us
hand.
with a soft
Bonnie
groan.
really signed
Rain
something,
smeared
she
the
said.
faded yellow
I will send it
lines on
once
the
you're
pavement.
somewhere safe,
Okay,
Sandra said.
I said.
She's
Tell
my
me.
sister.
Susan let out a
said.
thin laugh.
I know, Sandra
You do not
said.
want to keep driving
No,
first?
Susan
She
said,
said,
and her voice
put a few
cracked.
miles
You
between
do
us
not.
and my bad
She knows him.
decisions.
She knows
The
what he
joke
does.
was out of my mouth
Sandra
before
softened,
I had the
but
sense
only
to
a
soften
little.
it. Before
People
I could
often
dress it
know
up
and
as
pick
anything
comfort
harmless.
anyway, she said.
If this place
I am
makes
sorry.
you that
The words
miserable,
landed hard
I
in the
said.
cab. We
Cinching
drove
the
on
last
through
strap
low
of the hitch of my
cloud
trailer,
and dark timber.
standing in the gravel
trailer
lot behind our
swaying
duplexes.
whenever a gust
You should
crossed
just
the
come
road.
with me. Susan
I was ready for
sat
a laugh
very still,
or a
one
tired
hand
smile,
pressed flat to her
or the look
stomach,
neighbors give
like she
you
was
right
holding
before they
herself
find a
together
reason
from
to be
the
somewhere
outside.
else.
After
Susan
Sandra
Marsh looked
hung
at the
up
trailer,
the quiet
then looked
stretch
at
for
me.
miles, a canvas
Finally, I
bag
said,
hanging off
"Do you
one
want to talk about the
shoulder,
ring?"
drizzle
"No," she
catching her
said.
hair.
"All right," I
Okay,
said.
she
Another
said,
mile went
like she had
by.
been standing there
It is
for
in a
months,
wooden carving
waiting
box
for somebody to
with brass
finally
corners.
ask. She said,
That was the point
under
where
my
a smarter
tubes,
man would have stopped,
wrapped in an old
would have
rag.
asked
I
3
nodded.
or 4
Preston
plain
bought me that
questions.
box our
Where do you
first
think you're
Christmas
going?
married.
Why is
she
your
said.
bag already packed?
Told everyone he was
Are you in
supporting
some
my
kind of
art.
trouble?
She
Do
gave
you
a hollow
understand
little
that I was
laugh.
joking?
Then complained
Instead, I
about the
stood there
smell
like
of
a
the
man
ink
who had
for the
spent
next
55
19
years.
learning
Sound
to
efficient,
keep
I
his
said.
voice level.
What, she said.
Only to have
Being
one woman
generous
erase
and
the whole
resentful
lesson
about the
with a
very
single
same
word.
gift.
My name is
I
Dale
said.
Ashby.
That pulled a
I rebuild
tired
small
smile
engines
out of
for
her.
a living.
We turned off the
outboards
highway
and
north
mowers,
of Sandpoint,
the tired little
onto a
motors
narrow
people
road
haul
that
into my
climbed
shop
up into wet
after they have
forest.
already decided
The pavement
thing is
quit
dead.
after 2
I spend my
miles.
days coaxing
Gravel
life
cracked
back into
under
machines
the
other
tires.
folks gave up.
Branches
on.
dragged
I
along
understood
the
a
sides
seized
of the
engine
trailer
far
like
better than I
fingers.
understood.
Susan
a hurting
looked around.
person.
Are you
And
sure
most
this
days
is a
I
road?
told myself
She
that was
asked.
fine.
Legally,
I lived in a plain
probably,
little
I said.
duplex community
Emotionally,
outside Spokane.
Mabel and I prefer
Washington,
not to
the
label
kind of place
things.
with strong
The
opinions
land
about
showed up
trash
after a
bins,
last bin,
never quite
a
enough
small
room to park.
clearing above a
My
creek.
wife
Ellen
reigned with
had been
alder
gone
and
7
spruce.
years. There was a weathered
Cancer
post
did what
with a
cancer
power
does.
outlet. It moved
flat
in
gravel
quiet,
pad,
took up all
an
the
old
room in the
picnic
house,
table gone green
and
with
left the
moss.
quiet behind.
Passed
when
at the
it was
creek,
done.
ran
After
fast
she passed,
between stones.
I bought a used 22-foot
swollen
trailer
with all
off
the
a
rain.
retired couple
Park
down in
careful.
Pullman. Checked
It was
the
the
level,
color of
then
old
got out to
cream.
unhitch.
Dented
Susan
above
stepped
the rear
down
bumper
and stood in
with
the
yellow
clearing,
curtains. Ellen
arms
would have
wrapped
torn
down
tight
around
herself.
I fixed the water
Mist clung to her
lines,
hair.
laid new
For the first
flooring
time
and
since the
stocked
parking
it with
lot,
canned chili,
there was no
decent
building
coffee,
looming
and
behind
paper
her.
maps nobody
No
bothers
pressed
with
in
anymore.
under an overhang.
Every year,
No
right about the
diner
middle of
window.
July,
Nobody
I took
watching
it out
from
for
across
2
a road.
weeks.
Just
No
trees.
route,
No
she
big
looked
plan,
smaller
no
without
dramatic
the
search
danger
for
in frame.
meaning. Just
Or
highways
maybe I
and
finally
campgrounds,
saw
bad
how
diner
tired
pie,
she really was.
and enough miles
Inside,
to remember I was still a
Mabel
person.
smelled of cedar
Not only a
and
man
coffee
living in the after.
and old upholstery.
That morning I meant to
flipped on the
drive
heater
east
and the lights
into the Idaho
and the little
Panhandle.
space glowed
First night booked
amber
at a little
against
lake
the
park
gray
near
afternoon.
Coeur d'Alene.
Susan
I've been
stood
looking just
forward
inside
to
the
rain on the
door,
roof,
taking
to
it in,
nobody
the
in the
narrow
world
bed at the
needing
back,
a single
the tiny
thing from
dinette,
me.
the
Then
two-burner
Susan
stove,
came around the
the
corner
yellow
of Building
curtains,
C.
the maps
She had moved
tucked
in
beside
10
the
months
radio.
back.
One
It is
door down
nicer
from
than I
mine,
expected, she
46
said.
years old.
I'm choosing to
Brown
take
hair
that as a
she
compliment,
usually kept pinned
I
up.
said.
Gray
You should,
eyes that took in
she
more than
said.
they ever let
My
on.
expectations
She
were
taught
low.
art at the high school.
There's the Susan
though
I
only
know.
knew that because
said.
Mrs. Barnes
Her
from
smile
the upstairs
faded
unit treated
almost as
privacy
fast
like a
as it
lock.
came.
She was
I
born
showed
a
her
pig.
where to stow her
Susan
bag,
and I were
how the
friendly the way
bathroom
neighbors
latch
get.
stuck.
We
We talked by
cabinet
the
held
mailboxes.
food that would not
A jumper
technically
battery
poison her.
one
She
cold
sat at the
morning.
dinette while I
She
made
left a
coffee,
plate of
because
ginger
that is
cookies
what I
on
know
my
how to
step
do
when the
after I
world comes
tightened the
apart.
loose
Boil
stair
water,
rail,
then
measured
told me
ground
not
to
to
keep
read
the
into
hands
it
because she had baked
After a
far
while,
too
she
many.
reached for her bag.
I liked her quietly.
Sandra said not to
At
take
my
it out.
age, I reminded
you learn
her.
the line
I
between
know,
noticing a
she said,
person and
inventing a
unzipped it
future
anyway.
for them.
Noticing
out a
is the
wooden
way
carving
somebody
box
laughs with their
brass
whole
corners,
face.
a scratch
Inventing
handle,
is
one
deciding
side
that
laugh
laugh
has your
with
name
old
on it.
ink. I tried
She
hard
sat
to
on the
stay on the
table
first
like
side of that
evidence.
line.
That
I need
morning
to
she
know
did
it is
not
still
look like the
there,
woman who
she
teased
said.
me for
I
treating
understood that
rustic
kind of need.
carburetors. After
Treating
Ellen
them
died,
like museum
I played her
pieces.
save voicemail
She looked pale,
every night
worn
for
thin.
3 months.
Her raincoat was
terrified her
buttoned,
voice would
one hole
vanish
off.
if I stopped.
One
standing
cuff of her
guard over
sweater
it.
hung
Susan
lower
opened
than
the
the
box,
other.
and her
The smell
canvas
of
bag
ink
had been
rose
packed
up,
in a hurry.
sharp
The
and
zipper
mineral.
straining
Tubes
around
lay
a
in
folded
crooked
cloth
rows,
trying to
some
escape.
flattened,
Susan,
near empty. I said,
a few
"Are you
carving
all right?"
gouges wrapped
She
in
glanced
cloth,
back toward the building.
a baron
That was when
for
I
pulling
saw him.
prints. A man
Underneath
stood
it
near the
all,
glass
a
doors
gray
under
rag.
the overhang.
She
A
unfolded
phone
it.
loose
The
in one
ring
hand.
sat in her
Tall,
palm.
silver
Even
at
in
the
the trailer's
temples,
weak light,
a jacket
the emerald
that cost more
looked
than my truck
alive.
payment.
Deep
The kind of
green
man who
set
corrects a
in
waiter
old
control,
so gently
handsome
it lands
without
twice as
trying to be
hard.
delicate.
He was not shouting.
Susan stared at it.
He was not chasing
She gave it to
her.
me 2
Somehow,
days before
that
she
tightened my
died.
shoulders.
She
more
whispered,
than
either would have.
Preston was out in the hall.
Susan turned back to
arguing
me
with a nurse.
"Are you leaving right now?"
Vivian
She
kept
asked.
glancing at the door.
"Yeah," I said,
making
slowly,
sure he was
in
not
about
coming
10
back.
minutes.
Then she took it
"Where?"
off her own hand.
she said.
What was her
"East,"
name?
I told
I
her.
asked.
"The lake country,"
Vivian,
she said.
"Maybe
deeper
She sounds
in
like she
Idaho
saw
if
him
the weather
clearly,"
holds.
I said.
She looked at
She
the
did,
trailer again,
Susan said.
at the little window
Too late for
over the
herself.
sink, at
Not
the
too late
spare
for me.
tire bolted
Maybe
to the back.
the
at
trailer went
road
very
grime
quiet.
crusted
Then my
along the
phone
fenders.
buzzed. Then
We
she let
both
out a
flinched.
short laugh. with
Sandra had
nothing
sent a
warming.
file. Bonnie
Sounds
stated.
nice, she said.
Susan looked at it
That was
like
when
it
I made
might
the
catch
joke.
fire.
If this place
"Read it,"
makes you
she
that
said.
miserable,
"You do not have to
you
do
should
this
just
right
come with
now,"
me,
I said.
Read
She
it,
said.
she said.
"Okay."
So I did.
Rain
Bonnie
ticked
had
against
written
the trailer
that her
roof.
sister had
Behind
grown
us,
more
the man
and
under the
more
overhang
unstable
took one
since the
slow
separation.
step out from
That
the shelter.
Susan invented
I
cruelty
finally found my voice.
where there was only
"Susan,"
ordinary marital
I
friction.
said,
I was
that
kidding.
Susan was
I
fixated
know,
on
she said,
humiliating
but
Preston
you cannot
through crude
just.
and I let
ugly
the
artwork.
sentence die
That
because of
Susan
course
had a
she could.
history of
She was a
latching
grown
onto
woman
men
with a
who
packed
fed her
bag.
resentment.
Eyes
I
that
stopped.
had run
Susan's
clean
face
out of
had gone
places to
white.
land.
Keep going,
she
I
said.
said. You
No,
can.
Susan.
I just
I
think you
said.
might want to tell me
No.
why.
I
Her
said
mouth
again,
trembled
and set the
once
phone
before
down.
she got hold of
You
it.
can read
That
poison
small
yourself
thing
if
hit
you
me
want it.
harder than crying.
I'm not
in
going to
half.
spoon it to you.
Because if I
Her
stand
mouth
here another
opened,
10 minutes,
anger
she
flashing
said,
up. Then it
I'm
fell
going to
into
let him
something
explain
worse.
how I am
My own
overreacting.
sister, she said.
The man
I'm
called
sorry,
me over,
I said.
She used to hide in my room
do
when
not
our
turn
parents
this into a
fought.
scene.
Susan
There
said.
it was.
She used to
Not
crawl into my
loud,
bed
not
and put her
wild,
cold feet
sharp
on my
into a
legs.
fine edge
I flunked
that
a math
slid
test
right through the
once,
wet air between
helping her
us.
with her homework.
Susan
I
shut
gave
her
her my
eyes.
car when she got
I looked
pregnant
at him,
at 19.
then at her.
Rain's
Ex-husband,
husband,
I said.
The creek
Almost,
rushed
she said.
on beyond
That
the
one
trees.
word carried
Preston
a whole
paid for her son's
courthouse inside
rehab.
it. She
The
said
sensible part of
suddenly.
me pointed
Nolan,
out that none
I
of this
waited.
was my business.
I did not even think of it.
That I was a
She
widower
said.
with a trailer.
Bonnie said it was
and
alone.
a careful little
Preston
life.
said family
That
helps
a lonely
family.
man
She
ought to
laughed,
be very
and
slow.
it broke apart.
That he should
Nothing
wait
is
when
ever
a woman he
only
likes
help
turns
with him,
up in the rain.
she said.
When she
The
asked
ring
to
lay
be
on the
carried
table
off
between
without
us.
quite asking.
Then my phone
But I
buzzed
also
again.
knew the
Not
sound of a
Sandra.
person being
A
backed
message
into a
from
corner
Preston
with a
You
soft
have until
voice,
dark to bring
and I
her
knew I
back.
did not like it.
Below it,
I reached
a
over
photo
and
my
opened the
trailer
passenger
into
door of my
clearing,
truck.
shot from the trees.
Susan stared at it.
For a moment,
Put your bag on
neither
the
of us
back seat,
breathed.
I said.
Then something
Her eyes
slammed
came up to mine.
against the outside wall
she
of the
said,
trailer.
This is not
Susan
a
cried
kidnap.
out.
You can
I
change your mind
grabbed
at the first
the
stop
first
sign,
hard thing in
I
reach,
said,
which
For
happened
the
to be
first
a
time
cast iron
all
skillet.
morning,
Not
something
dignified,
close to a
but
real
persuasive
smile
touched her
Stay
mouth.
behind me. Generous,
I said, she said.
That is a skillet.
I am known
she
for my
said.
reasonable
It is a
exit
vintage skillet,
policies, I said.
Another
She
slam
moved
hit
fast
near the
then,
back window.
before
I
either
moved
of
to
us
the door,
could think it to death.
heart punching
She
hard
swung
enough
the
to
bag
hurt.
onto the back seat,
Through the little pane,
climbed up into
I
the
saw
cab,
only
and
trees
pulled the
and
door
rain.
shut behind
Then a
her.
voice outside
The man
called
from the
Susan.
overhang
Not
started
Preston,
across the lot.
a woman. I came around
Susan
the
went
driver's
stiff.
side with rain.
The voice came again,
soaking through the back
shaking.
of my shirt.
Susan, please,
He
it is
reached me
Bonnie.
just as I got my
Susan's
hand on the
face
door.
changed in a way
Excuse me,
I can
he
only
said,
call grief.
with the ease of a man
grief
used to being
recognizing a familiar
This is a
car
private
in the
matter.
driveway. I looked
Do not
past
open
him
it,
at Susan
I
in my
said.
truck.
She is
her
alone,
hands knotted
Susan
together
said.
in her lap.
You do not know
then
that.
back at him,
I said.
Funny.
Bonnie
I
knocked
said,
again. She looks
frantic.
pretty public standing
Susan,
out here in the rain.
I know you are in there, please.
His face pulled tight.
Susan moved
You have no
toward the
idea
door.
what is going on
I stepped
here,
in front
he
of her.
said.
No,
Window first,
I said.
but I know
She
she
did not
said
argue.
yes to a road
I
trip.
eased the curtain
yes to a
aside.
man who owns
Bonnie
three of the
stood out in the
exact
rain
same
beside the
shirts.
trailer.
So
I figure her
clean
morning has
through,
been rough.
Arms wrapped
For half
around
a second, the
herself.
polish cracked.
She was younger
and
than
something
Susan
ugly
by a
showed
few
under it.
years.
Then
The
Susan
same
rolled her
chin,
window down.
None of Susan's
Preston,
steadiness,
she said.
Behind her, the
And her
trees
voice came
stood
steadier
dark
than
and
her
thick.
hands.
No,
If you
Preston,
follow us,
no SUV.
I will call my lawyer.
That did not mean
and
anything.
then I will call your
I
daughter.
cracked the door with
The
the
man
chain
went
still
still.
on.
That
Step
was
back,
new.
I said.
I climbed into the
Bonnie
cab
stared at
and
the
turned
skillet
the
in
key.
my hand.
The old engine
that, she
rolled
said.
over and caught.
Hospitality
My
varies
trailer
by
lights
circumstance.
blinked red
I said.
through the drizzle.
Step back.
Susan did
She
not
did.
look back as I pulled
Susan's
out the
voice
lot,
came from behind
and neither
me.
did I.
Thin,
Not
and
until
cold.
we hit the first
How did you find
red
me?
light
She
3
asked.
blocks down.
Bonnie's
The
eyes
wipers
filled.
dragged sheets
Preston,
of water
she
off
said.
the glass.
Susan
My hand
flinched.
sat easy
He put
on
something
the
in your
wheel.
carving box.
Susan breathed
Bonnie
beside
said
fast, like a
every
tracker.
inhale.
He told
had to
me
be
after you
argued
left.
for.
He said
You
if
can
I
still get
cared
out.
about you,
I said
I would help
gently.
bring you home
No hard
before you wrecked your
feelings.
life.
I will turn
Susan
us around,
turned
drop
toward
you
the
anywhere
table.
you want.
The carving
She
box
kept her
sat
eyes on the
open,
road.
the ring
Then she reached
gleaming
into
on
her
rag.
coat. For a
Drew out
second,
her
nobody
phone
moved.
and turned
Then
the
I shut
lit
the
screen
door,
toward me.
freed the chain,
14
and let
missed
Bonnie
calls
in.
and
She
one message
stumbled
from Preston.
inside.
If you leave
dripping
with him,
on Mabel's
it
floor,
read, her
I'll tell
eyes
everyone
going
what you
Susan.
did.
Then the
Susan's
ring,
voice
then back
went
to
quiet.
Susan.
I need
Oh,
to tell you
God,
something,
she whispered.
She said. You really
Before
do
you
decide
have
whether you
Susan's
still want
face
me in your
hardened.
truck. Did you come
I
to
kept my
confirm his
eyes on the
inventory?
light,
She
even
asked.
after it turned green.
I came because he's
A
on his
horn
way.
tapped behind
Bonnie
us,
said.
not angry
A little
yet,
trailer,
just a
seemed to
nudge
close on
reminding
us.
us the world
I locked
still
the door.
expected
How
ordinary
far?
motion.
I asked.
Dale,
10
Susan
minutes.
said.
Bonnie
I am
said,
thinking,
maybe less.
That mostly works
He
better
made me
with the
ride
truck
up with
moving,
him, but
I
we
said.
fought at the turn.
The horn came
and
again.
I got out and
I
ran
eased
ahead
us through the
trees.
intersection slow enough
What?
that the man
Susan
behind
asked.
threw both
Bonnie
hands
looked
up,
wrecked.
swung around
Because I
me,
signed that
and
statement,
sped
she
off.
said.
Susan held her
said
phone
nothing.
between us like a
Bonnie
mic
hugged
light.
herself tighter.
If you leave with him,
He wrote it.
I will tell
she said.
everyone what you did.
I told myself
myself
Some
it was
sentences
mostly true.
open a door.
I told myself
open
you
a
had been
grave.
erratic because
I
you were
pulled into the
scared
lot
and
of a shuttered
entire
roof,
shop
and I did
to
not
want
wanna
to
know
know
why.
why.
And
I told
put the
myself
truck in
Preston
park.
was helping
The trailer
this
settled
family.
behind us with a
He paid
soft
for
groan.
Nolan's rehab.
Rain
Susan
smeared
said.
the faded yellow
Bonnie
lines
nodded,
on the pavement.
crying now.
Okay.
And he reminded
I said,
me of it
"Tell
every
me."
single month.
Susan
she
let out
said.
a thin laugh.
Susan looked away.
You do not want to keep
I'm
driving
sorry,
first?
Bonnie said.
She said.
I was
Put a
afraid
few
you would
miles
stop
between
helping.
us and my
I was
bad
afraid Nolan
decisions.
would relapse.
The joke
I was
was out
afraid
of my
to choose
mouth
you
before I had
afraid
the
of
sense to
losing
soften
the
it,
safety
before I could
Preston
dress
kept
it up
dangling
as
in
anything
front of me.
harmless.
It was never
If this
safety,
place makes
Susan
you
said.
that miserable,
I know that now,
I said.
Bonnie said,
Cinching the last
outside,
strap on the hitch of
an
my
engine
trailer,
sounded
standing
faint
in the gravel
on the
lot
gravel
behind
road.
our duplex.
Not close yet.
You should just
Close
come
enough.
with me.
I grabbed
was
my
ready
phone
for a
and
laugh
called Sandra.
or a tired
She picked up on the
smile,
first ring.
or the look
He is
neighbors
here,
give you right
I
before they
said.
find a reason
Police
to
are
be somewhere
already on
else.
their way.
Susan
Sandra
Marsh
said.
looked at the trailer.
I called them after the
then
photo.
looked at me.
Stay inside.
A canvas bag
record
hanging
everything.
off one shoulder.
Bonnie wiped her face.
Drizzle catching in her
He will
hair.
act calm if the
Okay,
police come,
she said,
like she had been standing
Susan
there
stared
for
at the
months.
ring.
Then she
waiting
stood
for
up
somebody to
straighter.
finally ask.
No.
She
That was
said
the point
he
where a
will
smarter
not.
man would have
She
stopped.
picked up her phone,
would have asked
powered it on,
3 or 4
and before
plain
Sandra
questions.
could object
Where
through
do you
my
think you're
speaker,
going?
she
Why
opened
is your
the
bag
recorder,
already packed?
pressed the button.
Are you in some
and
kind
set
of
on
trouble?
the dinette.
Do you understand
The engine
that I was
grew
joking?
louder.
Instead,
Tires
I stood
crunched
there like a
into the
man
clearing.
who had spent
A car door
55
opened.
years
Then Preston's
learning
voice
to keep his
came
voice
through
level.
the rain.
Only to
Susan,
have
come
one
outside.
woman erase
No
the
shouting,
whole lesson,
no
with a single
strain.
word.
The
My name
voice
is
of the
Dale
man
Ashby.
calling about a
I
late
rebuild
dinner
small
reservation.
engines for a living.
Susan opened the window
outboards
over
and
the
mowers,
sink,
but
but
kept
kept
the
little
screen
motors
latched.
people haul into my
Preston
shop
stood near my
after
truck
they have
in that
already
expensive
decided
jacket.
the thing is dead.
Rain
I spent
beating
my
on his
days
silver
coaxing
hair.
life back
He
in the
looked at the
machines
trailer,
other folks gave up
then
on.
at me through
I
the
understood
glass,
a seized engine
and
far
smiled
better
like
than
the
I
two of
understood
us were
a
being
hurting
foolish
person
together.
And most days
Mr.
I told
Ashby,
myself that was
he
fine.
called.
I live
You
in a
have had
plain
your
little
little adventure.
duplex community
Sent my
outside
wife out.
Spokane,
Almost
Washington,
ex-wife,
the kind of
Susan
place with
said.
strong opinions
His
about
expression
trash
flickered.
bins. Never
Susan,
quite enough room to park.
He said,
My
"This
wife,
is embarrassing."
Ellen,
Bonnie
had been gone
stepped up
7
beside her
years.
sister.
Cancer did
Preston's
what cancer
smile
does.
dropped away.
It moved in
"You," he
quiet,
said.
took up all
Bonnie's
the room in
voice
the
shook,
house,
but it held.
and left the
"I am
quiet
done," she
behind when
said.
it was done.
"No,"
After
he
she
said
passed,
softly.
I bought
"You
a
are
used
confused."
22-foot trailer off
Susan
a
laughed
retired
once,
couple down,
and it was not a kind
It was the
sound.
color of
Preston's
old cream,
eyes moved
dented
to the
above
table,
the rear
to the
bumper,
open carving
with
box,
yellow curtains
to the
Ellen
ring.
would have torn down.
There
on
it is,
sight.
he said.
I fixed the water
My
lines,
mother's ring.
laid new
Susan
flooring,
leaned
stocked
toward
it
the
with
window.
canned chili.
Vivian gave
decent
it to me,
coffee,
she said.
and paper maps.
Your mother
nobody
was
bothers with
medicated and
anymore.
dying.
Every
he
year,
said.
right
She
about
was
the
clear
middle
enough
of
to
July,
warn me.
I took it out
Susan
for 2
said.
weeks. His face
No route,
tightened, no
the crack
big
showing
plan,
again
no dramatic
under
search for
polish.
meaning, just
"You
highways
ungrateful
and
woman,"
campgrounds,
he
bad
said.
diner pie,
Bonnie gasped.
and enough miles
Susan
to remember
went
I was
very
still
still.
a person. Preston
Not
caught
only a
himself
man living in the
and
after.
smoothed it all back.
That
over.
morning I meant
You
to
see,
drive east.
He said, "This is
into
what
the
you do.
Idaho Panhandle.
You provoke people.
First night
then
booked
play
at
the
a
little
wounded
lake
one.
park near
Sirens
Lane.
sounded.
I have been
far
looking
off down the
forward to
mountain.
rain on the
Preston
roof.
heard them too.
To nobody
His
in the
gaze
world
snapped to me.
needing a
"You call the
single thing
police,"
from
he
me.
said.
Then
"Must have
Susan
been the
came
skillet,"
around the corner
I
of
said.
Building C.
"I am security
She had
minded."
moved in 10 months
He stepped
back,
closer to the
one door
trailer.
down from mine.
"Susan, listen to me,"
46
he
years
said.
old. Brown
"If you let this
hair,
go any
she usually
further,
kept pinned
I will
up,
make sure
gray
everyone
eyes that
sees
took in more
exactly
than they ever
what you
let
are.
on.
The
She
prince,
taught art at the high
the
school,
ring.
though I
David.
only knew that
Susan's
because
hand
Mrs.
hovered
Barnes
near
from
the
the
phone.
upstairs unit
Then
treated
Bonnie said,
privacy
"What about
like a
David?"
lock. She was
Preston
born to
turned
pick.
on her.
Susan
"Be quiet,"
and I
he
were
said.
friendly the way
"No."
neighbors get. Bonnie whispered,
We talked by
"What
the
about him?"
mailboxes. Preston's
I jumped her
control
battery
slipped
one
further.
cold morning.
He was a drunk
She left
who
a
thought
plate of
sleeping with
ginger
lonely
cookies on my
clients
step
made him a hero.
after I
he
tightened the
said.
loose
Susan
stair rail,
recoiled.
then told
"That
me
is a
not
lie,"
to read into
she
it
said.
because she had baked
"Is it?"
far
Preston
too many.
said.
I
"Who do you
liked her
think handed the
quietly.
police the
At my
toxicology
age,
angle?
You learn the line
clearing
between
went
noticing
silent,
a person
but for the rain.
and inventing a future
Even
for them.
Preston seemed to
Noticing
hear what had
is
just
the
come
way
out of
somebody
him.
laughs
Blue
with
and
their
red
whole
lights
face.
flashed
Inventing
between the trees.
is deciding that laugh
Sandra's
has
voice
your name on it.
came.
I tried
quiet
hard to
from
stay
my
on the
phone.
first side of that
Tell
line.
me that recorded.
That morning
she
she did
said.
not look like
It
the woman
recorded,
who
I
teased
said.
me for
Preston
treating rusted
backed away from the
carburetors,
trailer,
treating them
already
like museum
arranging
pieces.
his face for the
She looked
arriving
pale,
deputies.
worn thin.
But this time
Her
Bonnie
raincoat
opened the
was
door.
buttoned.
I tried to
one
grab
hole
her,
off,
but she was
one cuff
already
of her
outside,
sweater hung lower
standing
than
in
the
the
other,
rain
and her
between
canvas
Preston
bag had
and
been
the
packed
patrol
in a
car.
hurry. The
He
zipper
threatened
was
us,
straining around
she shouted
a fold
before
of
he could
cloth,
speak.
trying to escape.
He tracked my
Susan.
sister. He
I
made me
said,
sign a false
"Are you
statement.
all right?"
He
She
just
glanced
admitted he
back toward the
tampered with
building.
the investigation.
That was when I
into
saw him.
David Cole's
A man
death.
stood near the glass
Preston
doors
stared at her
under the
like
overhang.
she had turned into
A phone
someone
loose
he
in
could
one
not
hand.
name.
Tall,
Susan
silver
stepped
down
at the
beside
temples,
Bonnie,
a jacket
holding the carving
that cost more
box
than my
against
truck
her
payment.
chest. The kind of
followed
man
with
who
the skillet,
corrects a waiter
because by then it
so
felt
gently
rude
it
to
lands
abandon
twice
the
as hard.
tradition.
He was
The
not
next hour
shouting.
blurred.
He was not
Raining
chasing
questions.
her. Somehow,
Preston
that
smoothed heightened my shoulders,
Bonnie's
more
shaking
than either would
confession.
have.
Sandra
Susan turned
Cho
back to me.
arriving in
Are
a
you leaving right
mud-splattered
now?
sedan
She
like
asked.
Justice
Yeah,
with working
I said
wipers.
slowly.
Preston
and about
was
10
not
minutes.
arrested that afternoon.
Where?
Life
She
is
said.
rarely that
East.
tidy.
I told
But
her
he was no
the Lake
longer
Country,
invisible.
maybe
And
deeper in Idaho.
that was
if
the
the
thing
weather
that broke
holds.
him.
She
looked
looked
at
the
the
trailer
trailer
again.
At the little
So did the
window
tracker we
over the
peeled
sink
off the
at the
underspare
side
tire
tray.
bolted to
Bonnie
the back.
took
at the
back
road
her statement.
grime crusted
The
along
deputies
the
wrote their
fenders.
report.
Then she let out
Sandra
a short
filed
laugh
emergency
with nothing more in
motions
it.
before the
Sounds
sun went
nice,
down, she said.
And Susan
That
sat
was when
at
I made
Mabel's
the joke.
dinette after
If this
everyone
place
had
makes
gone,
you that
wrapped in
miserable,
one of my old
you should just
flannel
come with
shirts,
me,
I said,
staring at the
and she
emerald
said,
ring on the table.
Okay.
I thought
Rain
rain would feel
ticked
like
against the
freedom,
trailer roof.
she said.
Behind
What does it
us,
feel like?
the man
I
under the
asked.
overhang
Like
took
surgery
one
with no
slow
anesthesia,
step out from the shelter.
she said. I
I
finally
nodded.
found my voice.
Freedom is
Susan,
overrated on the
I
first
said,
day.
I was
I
kidding.
said, She looked at
know,
me then,
she said,
tired,
but you cannot
brainwashed
just
alive.
And I let the
I ruined your
sentence
road
die
trip
because of
course she
said.
could.
I looked around
She
the
was a
trailer,
grown woman with
the
a muddy
packed
floor,
bag,
the coffee cups,
eyes that had
the skillet
run
back of the
clean out
counter,
of places
the
to
woman
land.
across from me
I mean,
with her whole
I
life
said,
cracked
you can?
open.
I just think you
Somehow
might want to tell me
still in
why.
her own two
Her
hands.
mouth trembled once before
I said,
she got hold of it.
You changed the route.
That small thing
Ask
hit
me
me
tomorrow
harder
if you
than
can stay
crying
a
would
while.
have.
I said,
Because if I
"Not
stand here
tonight.
another 10 minutes,
Tonight you
she
just
said,
breathe.
I'm
Her
going to
eyes
let him
went soft
explain
and
how
wet,
I am
and she
overreacting.
nodded.
6
The man
months
called
later,
from the
Susan's
overhang.
prince
Susan,
opened in
do
Seattle
not turn
on
this
the
into a
title
scene.
Vivian's window.
There it was.
The emerald
Not
ring
loud,
sat in a glass
not
case
wild,
beside the
just
first
sharpened to
panel
a fine
with a small
edge that
card that
slid
read,
right through
a
the wet
gift
air
from a woman
between
who
us.
remembered. Susan
Preston's
shut her
reputation
eyes.
did
I looked
not
at him,
fall
then
in
at
a
her.
day.
Ex-husband,
But began to
I
rot
said.
out in the
Almost,
open,
she said,
which was close
that
enough.
one word carried
Bonnie
a whole
and Susan were
courthouse
not
inside it.
magically healed.
The sensible part of me
Sisters
pointed
do
out
not
that
undo
none
a
of this was
betrayal
my
with
business.
one apology.
That I was a
But they
widower
started
with
with
a
coffee,
trailer,
then
and
phone
careful
calls,
little
then the
life.
truth.
That a
As for
lonely
me,
man
I still
ought to
take
be
Mabel
very
out
slow,
every July.
that he should
Only
wait
now there are
when a
2
woman he
mugs
likes
in a
turns up
cabinet,
in the rain,
a box of
when
carving
she
tools
asks
under
to be
the
carried
bed,
off,
and
and a
without
woman who
quite
tells
asking.
me my
But I also
emergency
knew the
chili
sound of a
needs
person being
emotional
backed into a
development.
corner.
Sometimes
with a
when the
soft
rain
voice,
taps the roof,
and I knew I did
and
not
the
like
highway
it.
rolls
I
out
reached
ahead.
over,
Susan
opened the
reaches
passenger
over
door of my
and
truck.
takes my hand.
Susan stared
And every
at it.
time,
Put your
I
back
think
on the
of that
back
morning in
seat,
the parking
I said.
lot. The
Her
joke,
eyes came up
the
to
packed
mine.
bag,
Dale,
the one word
she
that
said,
changed
this is not a
everything.
kidnapping.
Okay.
You can change your mind
What
at
would
the
you have
first
done?
stop sign.
If you
I
joked
said.
that your neighbor should
For the
come
first
along on
time
the road
all
trip,
morning,
and she said
something
yes like she
close
had
to
been
a
waiting
real
all
smile
along for a
touched
way
her
out.
mouth.
And have you
Generous,
ever had
she said.
one
I am known for my
unexpected
reasonable
moment turn
exit
into policies?
something bigger.
I said, something
She
far
moved
bigger
fast
than either of you
then.
planned. Before
Tell me your
either of us
story
can
in the
think it to
comments.
death. If this
She
one stayed
swung
with
the bag
you,
onto
leave
the
a
back
like,
seat,
subscribe,
climbed up into
and
the
I will
cab,
see you in the next
and
video.
pulled the door shut.